You won't be able to see me quite yet. You'll just be able to see a picture of my rhubarb. And yes, I decided to come on 15 minutes early for various reasons. And I'll probably, as long as I'm able to, I'll probably do this on a regular basis. Just come on 10-15 minutes before the actual show. And that way, since YouTube tends to have delayed responses sending out the notifications, that gives people more time to get the notifications and get in here. And it gives me time just to kind of chat about whatever. And yeah, just kind of shoot the breeze with you for a bit. And then we'll get, on the hour, we will get started for reels, for really reels. Don't you love my grammar? It's so great. So we've got Wee Tree, Keeping It Dutch, hey, Ma and Pa Park, The Loaded Sink, hello people coming in. So my, while I've got the picture of my rhubarb up, it's one of the few things that's just growing really well right now. We've had a very, very cold spring so far. I mean, it's middle of April for crying out loud, and it feels like winter. Except for when the sun comes out, then it feels like spring. But that is usually maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. So, for whatever reason, the rhubarb is going crazy. But maybe it's because the rhubarb doesn't like sun anyway. It likes shade. So that little corner that it's in gets absolutely no direct sun. So, it is looking beautiful. And I'm looking forward to being able to make some more peach rhubarb syrup, but I'm not sure when my peaches will be ready. So, but the rhubarb keeps coming along all through the summer, so that's always good. So I am in Washington State, Simple Life Homestead. And hello, Grizz. And Jen, Bunny, Karen Bell, Jatan, I don't remember if I ever, and Wendy Benjamin, hello. Jatan, I don't remember if I ever found out whether or not I'm saying your name correctly, so if you could just let me know. I like to be able to say people's names the correct way. No, I'm in Washington. Some people think I'm in Oregon, but hey, it's close. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Bumblebee Junction. Sandra Kurtz. So I'm just sipping on some tea. And you're not late, Teresa. I'm just coming on a little bit early just so I can give people plenty of time to get in here. And just to kind of, like I said, shoot the breeze a little bit. Okay, good. Thank you, Jatan. So, hi, Rhonda. Yeah, Washington State, where it's very wet. Well, let me clarify that. A lot of people who don't live in Washington, have never lived in Washington, never been to Washington, what they assume is that all of Washington State is rainy and wet. But I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, it absolutely is not. Washington State has two sides to it. There's the west side of the Cascades and there's the east side of the Cascades. The west side is the wet side, as you could figure. But the east side, there's areas in there's areas in the east side that are very much like desert. I know because I lived in that area before too. So you just, drive a few hours and suddenly you're in a completely different climate. You go from one side of the mountains where there's hardly any trees or green anywhere, and then all of a sudden, once you get to about Leavenworth, which is beautiful, by the way, I love Leavenworth. It is a tourist trap, but I love it. I spent a lot of my days in my growing up years in Leavenworth. And then you get over to you get over to here and it just keeps getting wetter and wetter. And here's another thing a lot of people don't know. Even Seattle people, the Seattle people don't see. Emerald City people, there we go, that's what I was looking for, is that they don't know what rain is. They think they know what rain is. And I'm here to tell you, I've lived in all climates of Washington State. I lived in the dry, hot, 10 inches of rain max per year, to the Seattle area where they get 40 to 50 inches of rain per year to where I'm at now, where when I first came here, the average rainfall was 144 inches. That's a gross, people, and it's kind of gross. 144 inches. Can you imagine that? And I think our record is well over 160 inches, but I just say an average of 120 to 160. Yes, Leavenworth. Yeah, exactly, Bumblebee. It is. It's beautiful and pricey. So at least I think that's what you meant, pricey. I think there was supposed to be an R in there. That's how I read it anyway. Yes, Jess. It's a totally different world. Hey, Wayne. Nice to see you. And the Texas boys have come in. There's some more people filing in here. And I hope I didn't miss anyone. Trying to say hi to everyone. I'm really going to try to be better today about getting on top of the questions, because this is supposed to be mostly about Q&A. That's a good point, Sandra. Well, yeah, pie is the standard. People think strawberry rhubarb pie, but there's other types of pie as well, like blueberry rhubarb and peach rhubarb, and I've done those before. Syrups and jams. One of my favorite syrups, I just experimented one year, is peach rhubarb. I just really, really like it. I don't do a whole lot with rhubarb myself, to be honest. I keep thinking there is a way to take rhubarb and use it in a more of a non-sweet way. So, Mark. You guys crack me up. See, this is why I like coming on early, because I get to kind of hang with you and just laugh for a little bit before I get into the seriousness. But what is serious? You got humidity. Western Washington is, yeah, Grizz, it really, really does. And that's what it's doing. As far as wetness goes, in April, I think we're about average. I haven't looked to see what our rainfall is for April yet, but I would say it's average for every other year in April. However, this is the coldest April I remember. Last year by this time, I already had little grapes starting to come on my grapevines. And obviously it was mostly leafed out. And now it's just starting to get buds. So everything is very, very late other than my rhubarb. The strawberries plants are coming along, but I don't think they're as far along as they normally would be. Even the dandelions seem like they're a little behind the times, behind on coming along there. But, sorry, I'm sipping some tea. I'm hoping this will help my throat and help me make it through this show so I don't have to be rude and use a cough drop or something to keep it, keep those nodules soothed. I did take some homemade elderberry syrup before I started, hoping that will help. And my tea has marshmallow root and dandelion root and elderberries and a few other things. I can't remember what. I threw a bunch of stuff in there. Cinnamon. Nutmeg. I put some nutmeg in there. Yep. You're supposed to still be seeing a picture of my rhubarb, my young rhubarb for the year, and my Shady Place rhubarb. Now, I can only assume that there's a couple of different varieties of rhubarb. The kind that loves the sun and the kind that hates the sun. This right here is the kind that hates the sun, which is perfect for where I live. Green Gables, I harvest in fact, some of these are ready to harvest right now. But I don't want to harvest it too soon because I want to let it get a little bit fuller than that. Hello, Flying, VS Farm, Carol Hall, LB Smith, Faith Abounds at Melody Acres. I'm just remembering to go through. Michelle, hello. You already have berries on your raspberry plants. Cool. My raspberry plants are just starting to leaf out, so that's good too. But it is common that we don't start seeing raspberries here until about the 4th of July, right at the end of June sometimes if it's kind of early. Like last year they came on a little bit early. But usually right about the 4th of July is when they're ready to start picking. So I'm going to remove the picture now. So, oh, that's not supposed to be up there. Sorry. So, see if I can get my camera to come on. It's trying to. That's from last week. Okay, there we are. Let me get the elderberry thing off there. That's last week's. That's so last week. So I tried to set the angle of the camera a little bit better so it's not pointing up at the ceiling practically. I might have a little auto-focusing thing going on here. Still trying to work with this thing. It's new to me, but I do notice I get a much clearer picture when I use this. So, okay, what else is going on? So I'm gonna once we hit the hour, I'm gonna go over some chat rules and just a few other housekeeping issues, and then I'll get into more Q&A and talking about some of my videos I recently put out, or even older videos that are now really popular, which is it's really cool to see my my fermentation starter video just really taking off. Oh, and I got to tell you something about this camera. So in our first live shows, before we got this camera and we were just using the camera on the computer, Green Gables, it is probably not just you. Right now my stream health is it looks very healthy. It's green, which is rare for it to look green. Hello, Oily. Good to see you. Compass Rose Acres. I don't know if I said hi to you, but hello, just in case I missed you. Anyway, it's rare for mine to actually look green on my end. So it could be you, but expect buffering when it's coming from me because we don't have great internet yet. But anyway, what I was going to say about this camera is that, okay, the only lights I have on right now are just my little string lights that I have on, and I only have that on just because it's a little bit dreary, and that just keeps it from feeling so dreary, because even though my living room window is south facing, it's still very dark. The cedar tree and the ash tree tend to shade it a bit, and it is pretty dreary outside. But I don't have, like before, I was having to use 2 halogen lights to make us, like, to be able to look this bright. So, well, I should say the light from the computer screen too. So I have that too. So just that's pretty much the only light. I don't need to plug in the halogen lights, which make me even more, you know, I didn't build a fire this morning. It's cold enough to build a fire right now because that's the way it is here. It's so cold here. But if I had done that, I would be here sweating like crazy because I get so excited for these shows. I get so wound up that I get too warm and you'll see my cheeks start to flush, and yeah, and I end up having to run to the bathroom about a zillion times before the show starts because, you know, I don't know. I was the same way when I do dance shows. I'd get so excited or have to do it, you know, sing or anything, you know. I was in like numerous choirs and stuff and singing ensembles and did solos, playing guitar, played drums, all that kind of stuff. But every time I'd get the same way. It didn't matter that, like with the dance shows, 27 years, you think I would be used to it. Still get nervous like that every time. So hello RSG, welcome, or Jay, excuse me, Texas, and Blessed Farm, and thanks for coming into your first live stream, or for me. Okay, so, well, we got a couple minutes yet. Of course, then by the time you hear me, I don't know what the lag is on this. It's showing on my time a couple more minutes, so if anybody can kind of give me an idea of the lag, I'm going to go ahead and get started. No, one of these days I am going to pull out my guitar and do a brief little song. My vocal cords are so thrashed from years of teaching and singing that they don't last long, and that's why I start coughing, and I get a lot of mucus buildup because of the nodules in my vocal cords. They're pretty thrashed. So when it comes to singing, I cannot do a show and then sing at the same time. I have to do it separately, or maybe do the singing first, and then it has to be very short, because if I did a whole song, my vocal cords would be toast by the end, and I wouldn't even be able to talk. That's usually the way it is. I don't know, it depends on the day too. some days I can walk around the house and sing all day with the music playing, and then other times, no, can't do it. So, and right now I already feel like I've been talking too much. So I don't know how well this will go. Okay, so I'm going to officially get started. Now that everybody's poured in here, I'm glad that I did this early thing. I think I'll do this from now on. I'll set my time at 11 or whatever. I may think of going earlier, even like 10:30 my time. It's 11 o'clock right now my time. But I'll still try to come on 10 to 15 minutes early. That gives time for people to get the notifications and kind of file in, and gives me time to calm my nerves. So I want to go over some chat rules. And I may have to do this every time because I've always got new people coming in, and I just want people to understand. Mark, oh, you crack me up. I love it when you can make it in here because you always make me laugh. But my show, I try to keep it very family friendly. So I need to lay down some ground rules, and that is absolutely no profanity. Mild profanity will get your comment deleted with one warning. If you continue after that, you're gone. Okay? And then any harsh profanity, there's no warning given. You're gone. You're just gone. You're out of there. Because I have people from all over, and even if you're one that loves profanity, there's no reason why you couldn't sit and enjoy a family-friendly show. No reason. There's no need for that. It's just, you know, it does nothing to add to a conversation. It decreases your vocabulary. So, you know, let's keep it family friendly, okay? And that includes Grizz, you know, right? Love you, Grizz, and love having you in here, but let's keep it family friendly for everyone, right? The kids and all that. So, you know, I love you, and you crack me up too. So. But we just want everybody to feel welcome and comfortable in here, and that's my goal. So I think even people who speak a profanity every third word should still be able to come in here and enjoy the show. Okay, so anyway. So and I didn't see that actually. I was just oh gosh. Okay. Okay, people, I'm going to try to get better at reading comments out loud so you know why I'm laughing. Here's a Bumblebee Junction. Rude profanity. Heidi will come to your house and disembowel you. That's kind of borderline family friendly, but it cracks me up. Okay. It's great. It's great. Yeah. Don't forget, I do hold 2 black belts, one in, you know, each in 2 different forms of martial arts. One is Taekwondo and the other is Wu Wei Kung Fu, though I'm probably a little out of shape when it comes to that. I am, however, thinking about starting up an occasional like self-defense class for ladies and children, and just focusing on the self-defense moves, you know, getting people in a position where they can carry themselves in such a way that, I mean, because really, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a free piece of advice. And those of you who've taken martial arts already will already know this. The first rule of self-defense, and this is worded a little bit differently no matter where you come from, but is always being aware of your surroundings. So that means, you know, you don't go walking down a dark alleyway and expect to be safe. You know, you try to stay away from those things. You try to avoid those kind of things. Always park under a lighted, you know, place, but don't just take that for granted either. Even in a bright public place, you need to always be aware of who's around you. If people, this is what I used to say to my students all the time in my martial arts classes, walking around like this is a sure way to get yourself attacked, because you're making yourself a victim because you're not at all aware of what's going on around you or who's around you. I mean, just look at how many people have walked into fountains and off piers and in front of traffic. I mean, come on people. So put the phones away when you're out in public. Yeah, you don't need to live on your smart device. Okay, so, and then the second thing, here's another freebie for you, is the way you carry yourself makes a really big difference of whether or not you will become a target. So if you're walking with your head down and kind of you look like a victim, then you will make yourself a victim. But if you walk with your chin up, look people straight in the eye, hey, I'm only 5 foot tall. And believe it or not, people don't even know that I have black belts. You can tell the difference when I started carrying myself that way. I can tell the difference the way people respond to me. It's more positive, but also more respectful. And I've had people actually admit that I intimidate them. Hey, I'm friendly, I'm happy, I smile at people, but people are still, I'm talking people much bigger than me, and this includes men that are intimidated by me. And then people who knew me online and then met me in person were look at me and go, I was sure you'd be a lot taller than that. It's like, no, I'm just a little thing. So hey, there are a few times I get a little frustrated only being 5 foot tall, but I am still good at 51 years old at climbing counters. I don't like having to pull out a step stool every time. I just climb things. That's what I do. Climb on counters, and I've been doing that since I was a kid to get to that top shelf in the cupboards. So, dumb phones are killers. Hi, Anne. Okay, so some more rules. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. And that is about the all caps. So if you have questions for me, please post those in all caps, and please try to refrain from using all caps for anything but questions to me or answers if I'm asking you a question, so that to make sure that I see it. Now, comments that you would like me to see but aren't necessarily important, that I see right away, just make sure to put rain or rain country, and that will help get my attention. I am trying to keep up on comments, but it is difficult. So, but that's just out of respect for everyone, so everybody can have their fair chance to ask a question. And I can't, especially when I'm by myself, I cannot read. If everything's in all caps, I cannot keep up on all that, and I may miss some very important questions. So, anyway, a couple more things I need to go over, and I'm sorry. It's just some housekeeping, and that is, I am doing my level best to stay out of drama within the YouTube community on all sides. And so I absolutely do not want any of that drama dragged in here. I just want everybody to get along. And it doesn't mean we have to love everybody. It doesn't mean we have to, approve of everything that everybody does or everybody says. It just means that we can come in here, we can get along, and all that. I'm not into channel bashing. I won't do that. I try to respect and love everyone. And, if I don't like their channel or like what they have to say, I just don't watch them. I don't even give them a thumbs down. I just don't watch them. I've never, ever given anyone a thumbs down. Well, that's a lie. One time, and I think I said this before, and it was actually a YouTube video when they were promoting that whole heroes thing. That was the only thing I've ever given a thumbs down to, and it had like thousands and thousands of thumbs down, because that thing was stupid. So that was me telling YouTube that that's wrong. So, but as far as personal people and their channels, never. I do not give thumbs up or I give thumbs up. I don't give thumbs down. I'm just not like that. Now, what I have seen is when people have given other people thumbs down, when they came in and explained why they did it, that I thought was right, because at least that person now knows that it wasn't someone just being stupid and being a hater and just disliking just because they dislike. It was because they had a reason, and here they were respectful enough to say why, and I appreciate that. I still don't do that. I just, and I don't have a problem with that. I just, for me, don't do that. So, okay, whatever that was about. All right. So anyway, okay. So hello, old ways, Donna, Mama Cat. So anyway, I hope you understand that. So we're just trying to keep this, this isn't about networks. This isn't about drama. This is just me and my show. So let's keep all that other stuff out of here, and let's just get along and Be kind to each other. That's all I want. So anyway, enough of that. Okay, excuse me. I got to keep sipping that tea so I can keep my... If I tell you that marshmallow root, and that's a good subject too. I did talk about marshmallow on one of my live shows a while back, so you can find that if you do a search. But marshmallow is what's that word? Whatever. Wheat tree will know. But anyway, it's really good at soothing the throat and anything with the mucous membrane. And so when I ever get around to making my own throat lozenges, I'm going to make it with marshmallow root, preferably my own. That it's coming up everywhere, by the way. It's looking beautiful. I'm so excited. And then elderberry and maybe some like cinnamon and some stuff like that. So, well, no, not the drug mucinic. I'm talking about the property of the herb. That's it right there, mucilaginous. That's what I was trying to say, but it just was not wanting to come out. Thank you, Waitree. So, violets. Tessie, what do you do with your violets? I have been wanting to do something with violets. I believe they are edible. There was a candy I do not think is available anymore. But back in the 70s, at least, and 80s, it was in a little oval-shaped tin, and it was a violet. Oh, Teresa, thank you. I keep calling you Teresa. T, thank you. We try to keep it, so we, because we have Teresa and we have T Teresa. So, and T is her nickname, and she's always been called that. Thank you again. You're always so helpful. So I dry them and add olive oil and infused. Okay, so it's good for a salve. Thank you, Tessie. I want to look that up. But anyway, there was this candy. Some of you may remember, and I believe it was a violet candy. It had a violet flavor to it, and it sounded like it'd be kind of nasty, but it was really good. I loved it. So it had I can't remember the name of it, but I remember I used to pick it up there, and back when I lived on the other side, on the other side of the mountains, and I'd go out to Kashmir, and there was a little museum there. I'd stay out there with my grandpa, and there was this really cool old museum there. I could visit every single day and look at the same stuff every day, and I loved it. I loved it. I just kept going in there, and I'd buy a little tin of those violet candies, and I know some of you must know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the name. They were just a really about that big little white candy in a little tin. So you can still buy them. I did look for them one time, and I found them somewhere, but oh my goodness, they were so expensive. I couldn't believe it. I was like, ah! I was like, I know I didn't pay that for that back in the 70s. I know they can be candied, but fresh, I find them pleasantly. Okay. So similar maybe to a nasturtium. Nasturtiums have a very kind of peppery, radishy type flavor. I love nasturtium flowers. I love pansy flowers because they're a little more sweeter but mild. They're not at all perfumey. Like lavender flowers, I do not like the taste of. Some people do, but I don't care for the taste. Now, I love the taste of lavender leaves, though. So, thank you, Josh. Thank you for that. No, I'm not talking about Altoids. These were not like little discs. They were round and smooth on the outside and in a oval shaped tin. And they came in, violet was the most popular one, but I think they also came in a rose flavor and maybe another one, maybe licorice. I think licorice too. So, an oval shaped tin that was mostly white. Anyway, okay, so I think I got through all of the housekeeping stuff. So I want to get into talking about, and I do want to take more questions, but let me cover a couple of my videos that people were asking a lot of questions on, and take if there's any more questions. I think lilac is edible, Tessie. Don't take my word for it. I'd look it up, but I believe it is edible, if I remember correctly. And Jean O'Connor, I like the smell of lavender off and on. Natural lavender makes a big difference, though. I hated the smell of lavender until I smelled it in its more natural form, not the synthetic lavender. Synthetic lavender is nasty. So, and it gives me a headache. Anyway, so dandelions. Let's talk a little bit about dandelions, the video I put up yesterday. So I actually shot that video a few days ago, and I got some questions and some comments, and I wanted to approach that. Now, people were talking about how long those roots are, like they've never seen the roots that long. Well, here's the thing. Until I started growing the dandelions in my garden with that nice loose soil like that, anything I dug up out of the yard, it would have more of the cluster type that were shorter roots. But the ones in the garden, because the soil is so loose, that root will just keep shooting down and down and down. And that's how come I was able to get like roots that long. So that's, you know, that's one of the reasons why I really like growing them there. Plus, those roots, like I said in the video, they shoot those long tap roots down, they break up the soil, and they bring all those nutrients down into the soil and feed all the surrounding plants. A lot of people think it's crazy to leave dandelions in the garden. I think it makes absolute sense. How do things grow in nature? How do they grow in nature? The dandelions, the leaves spread across the ground, and they protect the soil. They keep it from, you know, the soil from, you know, all the moisture from, you guys know what I mean, coming out of the soil from drying out. And then the roots feed the surrounding plants. Plus, you can keep harvesting the leaves and the flowers throughout the year. That's what I do. I always try to leave some flowers for my bees. Well, they're not my bees, but when the borage comes out, oh my goodness, my garden is so full of bees. But I just walk right, you know, I'm brushing up against the borage, and the bees do not bother me, and I do not bother them, and we all get along. And so I love it. But then I wanted to say something else, because some people were like, you know, don't throw away the leaves. I didn't throw away the leaves and the flowers. There was only a couple of flowers actually got dug up. There's a ton more dandelion flowers out there, and right now I'm not harvesting them, because it's really besides my pansies, it's really the only other flower out there. Now, I haven't seen the bees come out yet, but I want those flowers there, so when the bees start coming around, those flowers are there for them. And then once I start getting more things, like my lavender starts blooming and the borage and all this other stuff is blooming, drawing the bees in and giving them something to feed on, then I will start harvesting my dandelion flowers. Now, as far as that stuff you saw me break off the roots and toss down, what you didn't see was later I came back and I took those and broke them up and spread them around the garden. And I lay the leaves down on the garden as a as a mulch layer. And then as those, you know, biodegrade, and then they break down and go down in the soil, then all those good minerals and stuff are going back down into the soil where you want them for the plants. So, and I'll do that throughout the year, because I'll have lots of leaves. I'll pick some for salads, I'll pick some to dehydrate, and some I'll just break off. I'll do this with the plantain too, because I get a lot, and just tear it up and throw it down there. I do that with the borage. Sometimes with the borage, because it gets so big, I'll even take basically a machete and just go out there and chop and drop, and then it just makes a great mulch layer for the surrounding plants. So if you're not growing borage, I'd say do that. I don't have to ever plant it anymore, because now volunteers come up every year, because it so readily self-seeds. So I'm already seeing little borages coming up, even though it's been cold and everything else is really behind. The borage is starting to pop up, and I'm so happy. So let's see. Let's see. So any questions regarding, do you think you will write a book with all? I've had a lot of people ask me to write a book. My mom has pushed me on that one quite a bit. I personally don't feel I know enough yet to write a book, at least not about one specific thing. However, I'm still considering doing a book that covers everything, kind of like the way my channel does, because we have except for the things that Mr. Rain does, because that's his thing, which, by the way, people, I'm hoping that soon we'll be at a point where he can start doing more videos again, and and live shows. I'm sorry that he's been MIA, but there's a lot going on, and maybe we'll get into that. eventually, but just be prepared for some big changes happening around here. I think we'll be turning over a new leaf, and we'll be seeing some things heading in a different direction, and I've got high hopes for it. God willing, and I believe it is God's will, but I don't want to just assume either. So we're just trusting, you know. But anyway, I did it again. I rabbit trailed, then forgot where I was. Yes, the borage, once it starts growing, it grows so fast. It's so hard. It's almost impossible to keep up on. What season is best to harvest dandelion roots? Thank you, Simple Life. That was one of the questions I was going to answer. I actually wrote that down. And what is your favorite spring recipe to make? Okay, so I'll try to remember to get to that too. Okay, so I think spring or fall, I haven't really looked into what is the best season. What I do is what's best for me. Some people say they harvest in the fall. Okay, and Wee Tree says best for herbal use is in the fall. And that's late fall, and that's what I thought I had read. Now, hi Amy, and Faye, good to see you. One reason I harvest in the spring is because of the fact that I allow my dandelions to grow in my garden with my annuals and other perennials. I like to get as many of the roots harvested before I have all my annuals growing, because then I don't want to disturb anything. So then whatever's left I'm using for just the leaves and the flowers. And it is actually easiest for me to harvest them in the early spring rather than in the late fall, because one reason why, even though it's very wet and cold right now, it in the fall it's like this again, but it's worse in some ways in late fall. So by the time everything is harvested that I want harvested, and a lot of times I still don't even get everything out of the ground because the weather gets so nasty, it's almost impossible to get out there and do anything. And I certainly don't want to be out there harvesting the dandelion then. So a lot of it for me also has to do with our climate and what we have to work around. So okay, and then Rebecca had asked about favorite springtime recipe. I might have to think about that one. I can't think of anything right now because everything is still, there's not really much to harvest and use yet. However, like one of my favorite things, but we're not there yet, is when I have all of my flowers and all the green things that I like to put in salads. Love that, but that's not really springtime, that's more summer for us. So that's when our lettuces are doing best, and our kale, and then I have the dandelion leaves too, plus the nasturtiums and the pansies and the borage flowers, and I get to throw that all in the salad, and it's so good. Oh yes, and the thyme, I love putting thyme, lemon thyme, and then the Highland cream thyme, and something else I'm forgetting. Anyway, I love putting all that stuff in my salads. So good. I don't even put dressing on my salads because there's so much flavor with all those in there. You got the nasturtiums adding that radish flavor. Oh, and then cucumbers. If I have cucumbers, throw those in there, and some fresh onions, and oh man, such a great salad and so healthy. So yeah, I can't think of a basic springtime recipe, but what I'll be doing maybe later today or tomorrow is I'm going to be going out. My stinging nettle is looking really good. It's ready to harvest, and it's actually best to start harvesting now, because if I wait till later in there, there's too much other stuff in there, and that stupid chokeweed that I can never get rid of, and some of you will know what I'm talking about, especially if you live on this side of the Cascades or any place like this. Oh, it wants to take over everything. It takes over my raspberries, and and by the way, if anybody has any natural ways besides pulling that can actually get rid and kill off chokeweed, I would be all over that. But I don't know that there's any natural way, and that stuff it's beautiful though. It's beautiful. If you don't know what chokeweed is, around here a lot of people, hi Let It Snow. A lot of people around here call it morning glory because the flowers look like morning glory, but you know, the plant kind of looks like morning glory, but it's not. It's related, but it is not morning glory. I don't think morning glory grows quite as voraciously as the chokeweed, or what do they call it in the UK? Bindweed. So that stuff is terrible. But it looks beautiful. It grows on my hedges and just adds some nice pretty white flowers when they open up. And there's other things I don't mind it growing over, but when it takes over everything else and starts choking it out, oh man, that makes me so mad. And I don't know what else to do about it. So, okay. Any more questions or anything that I've missed as far in regards to dandelions? Comfrey flowers edible. I'm not sure about that, Bandana Grandma. I can't remember. I've looked it up before, and I get confused. Morning Glory is poisonous. Yes, Simple Life Homestead. But we have, at least I think the morning Glory is. I believe the chokeweed is. It takes over everything, and it's, you know, it just keeps sending out roots, and even if a root that big, if you leave a tiny little piece of root, it'll grow a new plant. And it's terrible. It's beautiful, but it's terrible. It takes over. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so back to the comfrey. Now, okay, Wheat Tree says yes. Now, here's something that I had read a while back, because there's always these, okay, I'll come back to the milkweed. I don't know enough about milkweed myself. Maybe somebody else in the chat might know enough about a milkweed to share with Rebecca their thoughts, because I don't know. I've read about it before. I'm not growing any of it. The bad thing about me is I'll read all this stuff, but a lot of times, unless I'm actually growing it and using it, it's harder for me to remember, because I'm very hands-on, and hands-on is how I remember. Like for math, multiples, for instance. It's terrible at remembering my multiples until I started getting into crocheting, especially working with amigurumi, where I got to think in multiples, and now I've got it down, and because I had a practical way to apply it, and then it just became easy to memorize those. So you can steep morning glory seeds in. Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that. Okay. With my dandelion root in particular, I just use it for tea. In fact, I have some in the tea that I'm drinking right now, for the sake of all the good nutrients and stuff that are in the root. Just a lot of good stuff. And I'll even eat it. Here's another thing. The dandelion root in the spring has a much more, if you're wanting to go out and eat it raw, I don't know if you want to, but it has a much more mild flavor in the early spring. If you wait till later in the year, it gets way more bitter, and it's just like, ugh. Milkweed is good for the liver and the gallbladder. Okay, cool. Yeah. So anyway, okay, what was I going to say? Sorry. See, it's hard for me to stay focused. What was I going to say about was it dandelion, or was it something else? Oh, I was just talking about the practical use. So when I start growing my own herbs, or even buying, you know, the organic dried herbs from, you know, Amazon or Mountain Rose Herbs, and using them, then I'm more apt to remember what it's good for. And even then, I still can't remember everything that it's good for. And so I have to actually use it for specific things, and then I remember. Just like I always remember the first things that come to mind when people say pain is feverfew and catnip, because those are the things I grow and use for pain quite a bit. White pansy, he said that they call it vanilla. Said it helps allergy. Any idea of the variety? I would not know that one. And again, that's why I don't want to write a book or proclaim to be any kind of nutritionist, or, you know, because I don't have a license. I study this stuff as much as I can in the rare time that I have, and learn about it as I go. And does it, Tessie? Mine is still. Yours is already that far along. Mine is still just like only this tiny. It's just barely coming out of the dirt. And I'm like, I can't wait to see what it looks like. So, and I'm hoping it will do good in those pots up there if it's not too big. I don't even know what kind of size it will have to it, but I'm wanting to put it in the pots on that old wood stove we have out on the deck because I think it would look pretty out there. Chris. Okay, so I'm thinking, wow, that's great. Hey, Palmetto's in here. Hey, bud. Good to see you. So, any other questions on the dandelions? Or let's see. Let me make sure that I covered all that. Okay, I talked about the mulch. Oh, well, there was one more thing. Somebody thought they did it all wrong because they had dug up their dandelion and dehydrated all in one plant. Totally cool. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. Right, let it snow. It does taste nasty, the feverfew. Yeah, it makes you forget the pain. I do, but remember, it's a bitter, and so it also does very well for any kind of digestive issues. When I've had stomach problems at all, excuse me, I've gone out and chewed on that nasty old feverfew fresh, and boy, I tell you, right away, it has helped. I'm sorry, excuse me. And if they tasted like candy, yeah, there you go. I don't mind, like catnip I prefer better. I like the texture and the flavor better, but it's still not the most, it's still not the best tasting thing, but my catnip's been going crazy right now, and so, I mean, it's really starting to grow. And so I've been out nibbling on that because this is the time of year I think it's the best because it's the flavor's better and it's most tender, just like your lavender leaves. They taste best and are most tender when it's just starting to grow for the spring and before the flowers come on. So okay. Oh yeah. So for me, I like to do my dandelions separate. I like to have the roots separate from the leaves, separate from the flowers, because they all have their own uses. Some of them cross over. You know, like I'll use the roots and the flowers in tea, and the greens I use, you know, like the dehydrated greens go in my mixed greens blend, so on and so forth. Kind of East Coast gourmet dandelion. I don't know. Bumblebee. I didn't know there was a gourmet dandelion. I know around here we have dandelion and cat's ear. For some reason, cat's ear likes it best on the south side of the property, and then the dandelion likes it best on the north side. Well, I shouldn't say best. The dandelion grows all over, but typically I'll get more cat's ear out front and more dandelion in the back. So whatever, that's just the way it is. It depends on what it is, Jen Bunny. I've grown a lot of things. I've grown some lavender from seed that I planted. That was a little trickier, but I've done it. I have several plants that I grew from seed myself, but most of my lavender plants I bought as starts. Rosemary I have not grown from seed at all. I've bought that as starts. A lot of things, thyme, same way, I've only bought as starts. But other herbs like the feverfew, I grew from seed. Marshmallow root, the marshmallow, I grew from seed. Even the stinging nettle, I grew from seed. Even though stinging nettle grows wild all over out here, I just wanted some on my own property. And I grow it in a place that I'm not likely to walk around much. So it's kind of got its own special little spot, so I don't forget and, get all stung all to bits. It's not that bad, though. If you've never been stung by stinging nettle, I mean, as far as if you just barely brush it, it does sting, but it doesn't last very long, especially if you go get some plantain or whatever and put that on there. It helps quite a bit. Let's see. But I do order seeds, and like if you saw my announcement video earlier, that little marjoram plant I picked up as a start. I also, what else did I buy that day? Oh, even though I planted some parsley seed, I've never grown parsley, but I was watching Doug and Stacy's video a while back on the parsley, and I'm like, I need to grow parsley. I'm just not a huge fan of parsley, but after watching that, listening to what she had to say, I'm like, I got to grow parsley. So I tried putting seed in. I don't know if it will grow. I just kind of direct seeded it. We'll see what happens. But I also bought a parsley plant start while I was in town, stopping at my favorite organic store. So the rare times that we get into town, there is a great local owned store in there that carries a whole bunch of of that kind of stuff, the coconut aminos I was talking about in that one video. Just lots of great, like I can get my organic Valley milk in there for $2 a gallon cheaper than I can here. But I love my local store, and I don't want to say anything bad about my local store. They actually have, our local store here in town has actually really good prices on a lot of things that would surprise people for how remote we are. A lot of times people just make the assumption everything here is going to be way more expensive. Well, that's just not true. Some things, yes, are. Like any of the organic dairy products are definitely more expensive here. But I understand that, and I'm willing to pay it here. But if I have to make a trip into town, I'm going to go ahead and I'm in there anyway. I had to spend the money on fuel, so I'm going to stop in and get what I can there to help make up for the cost of the fuel that I had to spend. So, okay, so sorry, Debbie. I saw your question earlier. Thank you for asking again. There are some books, and I have a couple on hand, and unfortunately, if I had them in here, I could tell you. I don't really use those that much, but we do have a couple of them. One is really thorough, but I find it hard to read. But it is a really good one, the way it's laid out with pictures and stuff. It's just the way it's laid out is kind of hard to understand. I don't know. I like when things are mapped out really clear in books like that. But I do have a list of just good herbal books in the description box, and there's a lot of them out there. And one thing, even though, there's also a website I'll try to remember to link to if I think of it, that I've gone to look up Pacific Northwest herbs. But one thing people have to remember is just because it isn't supposed to grow in your area, it doesn't mean it won't. Marshmallow root isn't considered a Pacific Northwest. I keep calling it root but the whole plant is good. The flowers, the leaves, and the roots. I've used the leaves and the flowers in tea quite a bit. It's so good. And the flowers have an amazing smell. But anyway, marshmallow is not supposed to grow around here, but I'm going to have tons and tons of marshmallow this year. I had a lot last year, and it gets bigger every year, and I'm sure that some of my plants will be much taller than me this time around. Echinacea is another one that doesn't typically grow around here, but I'm getting some good healthy echinacea plants. I harvested echinacea last year and made a bunch of tincture, and I'm going to get at least twice as much this year. So don't just go by what you think should grow in your area. Definitely don't just trust in zones. If you live where I live, you'll understand why zones mean nothing. It might mean something where you're at, but where I am at, it means nothing. And I've said this before. Just take for instance the fact that I am in the same zone as Deep South Homestead. Really? Really? And they have summer like 9 months out of the year, and we have summer like maybe 9 days out of the year. So I'm sorry, it's not the same. We can't plant at the same times of the year. We can't, Okay, I see. Okay, let me catch up here. Okay, the collaboration. I honestly keep forgetting. I would like to be involved. It's not that I don't want to. I just add the dandelion flowers the dried dandelion flowers to my own tea blend, which has mints and marshmallow root and a bunch of other stuff. And yes, you can direct sow marshmallow, but I found I did better when I got good plants when I put it in starts. in the greenhouse, and then moved them out when they got to be about that big. No, Red Tank Girl. I'd have to see it to know. Some of that is to be expected. So, yeah, and okay, so I see she asked that question again. So, Tessie, I think you may have heard my answer by now. So, I would suggest doing your marshmallow and start, especially where you're at, Tessie. I would suggest starting it inside in just some little, cups, little, like 2-inch pots or whatever. And then when it gets to be about that big and it's warm enough outside, then plant it outside. Remember, it's a marsh-related plant, likes lots of water, but I think it's more common in Africa. But I think. But so anyway, let me get back to that collaboration thing. I just want to explain, because I feel really bad, because we've been asked to be a part of a couple collaborations that we totally meant to be a part of. However, our past several weekends have been very stressful and very filled up with some other very important things that we needed to get taken care of. I don't know what this weekend's going to be like. Some of the stuff is like the 30 random things I want to do with Mr. Rain, but we have not had time on his days off to do any videos together. Nothing. So, okay, Yankee Livin', thanks for stopping by. So, and I apologize, because I feel like I'm being such a snob because I'm not getting involved, and I want to, and I'm really hoping that once things settle down on our side of things, like I said, there's some major changes coming, and I think it'll be for the good once it's all said and done. But right now it's just tough. I'll just say that. It's just tough. It's going through this change, and then hopefully once this is done, then Mr. Rain and I can really kind of dig in and start really pouring more time back into doing collaborations and getting involved. I just don't want to make promises, and it's like this past week was the first week I was able to finally start making a bunch of videos again. The only reason I've been able to keep up on the videos was because I had a whole bunch already made and in a little bank on my computer. And Tessie, I don't think so. I don't think we're moving. I don't know. There's a lot of questions right now. So a lot of prayer is needed, and a lot of guidance. I absolutely do not want to move, but if God leads us somewhere else, it may happen. I'd rather stay right where we are, and we'll talk about that another day. But let's see. Okay. Where can I get a start? Sting and nettle. Now, I don't know, Sandra, because I started my sting and nettle from seed. And it was really easy to start. Oh, thank you, Let It Snow. I honestly, though, people in high school, when I was in high school, people thought I was a snob. And I was so surprised in my senior year when I found out people thought I was a snob. And it was only because I was so incredibly shy that I never looked at anyone, and I just kind of stayed to myself because I was afraid of everyone. Yeah, that was me back in high school until about my senior year. I finally started coming out of my shell. And people were like, oh, I always thought you were such a snob. I'm like, me? Really? So, and that was one of my first inclinations, that the way you carry yourself can set an improper message of who you really are. And, carrying yourself with self-confidence gets people to interact with you. It'll make you happier and them happier, and also make them a little more, this is not the kind of person that's a victim. So if they're a bad guy that's looking for a victim, they're going to go for a softer target. They're going to go for the person that's got their head down, like the person that I used to be, and that looks mousy and scared all the time. So that's, they're always going to go for the easiest target. Okay, so yeah, so anyway, the sting and nettle does grow easy from seed, and I think I got mine from Baker Creek years ago. And it'll just keep, just like any perennial, just keep coming back and getting bigger and bigger. Love those perennials. Okay, so was there any questions? Let's move on to the fermenting. Typically, I'm only supposed, or technically, I'm only supposed to have like 15 more minutes, but it is my time. I can go as long as I need to. Was there any questions about fermenting? I know one thing I wanted to say, and I actually haven't watched my original fermentation starter video that I made back in August, I think it was I made it. So I don't remember if I said this in the video or not, but how it goes is once you have your fermentation starter made, it takes roughly 3 to 5 days, depends on the climate, your temperature, and all that kind of stuff. So you've got your, let me just go through the basics on that. So you get your little mason jar, you put in a little bit of water, you put in a little bit of fruit. It literally can be pretty much any kind of fruit. The ones that will get the the fermentation starter going the best is raisins, grapes, blackberries, blueberries, and ginger. Pretty much anything that will have any kind of white coating on it, like you think of grapes and blueberries and blackberries, when you see that sort of little white haze, that's the yeast. And anything that has that is going to, is going to make a great starter, and it's going to get it going fast. But I've made a starter with strawberries and with peaches, and it worked great. But the raisins, grapes, blackberries, blueberries, and ginger work the best. And ginger, you have to make sure you leave the skin on, because that's where the yeast is, on the skin. So you cut the ginger up. So you put it in you put about maybe a tablespoon of the fruit into your jar with maybe about a quarter cup of water and maybe, a tablespoon of sugar. Then let it set, cover it with a cloth. Then later that same day, do that again. Add that much more water and that much more fruit and that much more sugar. And then let it set. Then the next day, do it again. The next day, do it again, and keep doing that until the jar is filled up and it's all good and bubbly. You just keep, each day you keep adding to it. And then once it's ready, you just strain off the liquid and you use the liquid, and then you fill the jar back up with water and with sugar, and you can either keep it on top of your fridge or in a place and just keep it constantly bubbly and alive. But if you do that, you have to feed it sugar every day. Just sugar, but you got to make sure you feed it every day. Now, if you put it in the fridge, you can get away with feeding it maybe once a month. Maybe even longer. I've had one that I forgot about, and it was in there for a couple months, and I'm like, oh man, it's probably dead. Open it, no, it was still bubbly. It was kind of weak, but it was still bubbly. So I set it out on the counter, put some sugar in it, and let it warm up, and then it, let it sit there for a day or two, and just basically let it. That was the blackberry one. The grape one that I made back in August, that one did end up dying on me. So yeah. It's like making a ginger bug. It's the same thing. In fact, that's when I first started making it, I was just making the ginger bug and then decided to experiment using other fruits. Raisin is excellent. You can just put a handful of raisins in there and man, it will go crazy. And so eventually one of these days, I have tried using it as a bread yeast and did okay. It was still pretty heavy. The reason I haven't done any more is because Mr. Rain and I much bread anymore. We've cut way back, so I haven't been making a lot of bread, though I do really want to make some pizza again soon. It's been so long since I made pizza, so I gotta make some bread. But eventually I'll start experimenting with just small little batches of a yeast bread and the liquid from my own fermentation starter, because it is a yeast. So the recipe for vinegar and made some kimchi. You made kimchi out of vinegar? Out of the vinegar? That's interesting. Now I make my kimchi out of my fermentation starter. I mean, they're definitely similar, but your vinegar is already to that point where it's sour, where your fermentation starter is bubbly. It should be bubbly when you use it and you go to put it in your whatever it is you're wanting to ferment. So sorry. Okay, so here it comes. I may have to put the cough drop in. Okay, so any other questions on the fermenting? It seems like there was something else, or even about vinegar itself. What I know I'm going to try to get in the habit of doing this year Usually I have some vinegars going almost all year round, but I have none going right now. But I got so far ahead on my vinegar last year that I'm doing really good. Um, oh, Avon Leanne, is that how you say your name, or Avon Leanne? Anyway, okay, so I'm trying to keep up here. All right, so what was I gonna say? I'm sorry. Oh, I was gonna try to get in the habit of using I always do my vinegar in a half-gallon jar. And then what I want to do is get in the habit of just taking a little half pint jar, you know, the skinny kind, not the short fat kind, and just sticking it in the top to hold the fruit down. When I have grapevines, you know, big grape leaves, I usually take a grape leaf to do that. But a lot of times I don't just worry about it, and I don't worry about it, and the fruit on top that sticks out and has a little bit of mold on it, I just carefully lift it out and throw it out, because anything underneath the vinegar is going to kill. So I don't worry about that. However, and it doesn't change the flavor. The flavor is still good. And okay, okay. So Avon, is it Avon Leanne? Okay. Again, it's like I'm funny that way. Maybe part of that is just being a dance teacher for so long, and it was all about trying to say people's names right. I do have a video, Debbie, on how I make vinegar. I'll be doing more videos. Once my roses, my pansies, and some other things that I like to use, my lavender, is ready for harvesting and using in my hair vinegar, I will do a video on that so I can show exactly what it is I put in and how much. Because when I do the floral vinegars or the mint vinegars or anything that doesn't have a high sugar content, I'm going to add sugar to it. If I am doing like an apple or a pear or a peach vinegar where I'm just using the peels, because it's okay, I'm canning a bunch of peaches, I use the peels, I just throw them in the jar. I don't add sugar to it because there's already sugar in the fruit. There's no need to add sugar to it. Now some people do. You can still add some sugar. Just know that if you do, it's going to take the vinegar longer. 30 days should be about right. Sometimes I haven't left it long enough and went and put it in a bottle, and it got really bubbly and, pretty much, yeah, like my mead used to be. Lavender can be a little bit tricky. If you have a hard time growing lavender, I would suggest buying starts and make sure it's planted in a place that has good drainage. Like rosemary is the same way. Rosemary and lavender are very similar. They don't like to get their feet wet, so they like to have a good loose soil where it can drain really well. And so I found for the rosemary, even if I plant it out in a good loose soil that's up high or in a pot, I will still lose it over the winter. The only place it grows good, thank you, SG, I appreciate that, is on the west side garden where I plant it close to the house, right up next to the house, because even though it's kind of lifted up there, and the way I've got the garden, it kind of slopes out towards the yard, so that you think all the water would run out this way. It has that little overhang that protects it from getting directly rained on, and that does the best. That's the only place I can get it to last through the winter, because we just get so much rain from fall through spring that the rosemary, usually by the time it's ready to start growing again, it's dead. So I might have to do the same thing with my okay, that's a good way to put it. Thank you, Weetree. Most plants are like humans, do not like wet feet at bedtime. I know I've heard that before. I think I heard it from you before, even. Okay, so if you're in a place that gets a lot of rain, it's wet a lot like we are, try finding a place where it's protected from getting too much rain, but it also likes a lot of sun. That's where it gets tricky. So that's why that west side over there, it gets just enough sun, but is also protected enough that, and I do have lavender growing out here in my main garden that does pretty good, but it doesn't do near as good as the lavender and the rosemary that grows over here. The rosemary never lasts out here, but the lavender does. it just does better over here. That's where my best plants are. And yes, volunteers, you should see my tomato starts. So I did a video on it, but I haven't shown the update. I did take some of the starts and transplant them, and they don't look all that great, the ones I transplanted, because I should have just left them alone, because they're doing really good. Yes, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm in the wettest part of the Pacific Northwest. There is no place in the Pacific Northwest that is as wet as we are. Here's what's interesting is the guy that started the whole Back to Eden garden thing, he's only about an hour and a half away from us. But his climate is very different from ours. Very different. So, yeah. It's funny how he can be that close and still be so different. And he's on the west side of the mountains, just like we are. You know, Paul Gauchi or whatever his name is. So, and I'm that close, and I still haven't been out to visit his garden. One of these days I might get out there, just, you know, make a day of it, and just for fun, but we'll see. I've grown sunflowers before. I might grow them this year. Especially if we do finally get our chickens. I might consider doing that. I love sunflowers. They do well here. They actually do well here. The blue jays love the sunflowers. And when they run out of the seeds, because they got to them all before you did, then they will come up to my back door and start knocking on the glass, letting me know that, hey, lady, give us some more sunflower seeds, because we ate them all. Little jerks. They're a pretty bird, but they're annoying, I tell you what. And they're mean. Sunlight is also open to interpretation. Full sun in Washington is not the same as full sun in Texas. Right? Yeah, full sun. Okay, where we live, it's like, what is that big glowing orb in the sky? Ah, everybody run for cover. Not really. Usually everybody's like, yay, sun, and everybody gets burnt to a crisp because they haven't seen sun in, 9 months, and then, whoops, got a little bit too much. Oh, anyway, any tips for sunflowers? Josh, I could use tips for sunflowers myself. Here's the problem. Here's my irritation with sunflowers. Is I'll plant them, they start to grow, and the slugs mow them down. Plant them again, start to grow, slugs mow them down. Finally, I'll get a few that will make it, and they'll get big, and they'll be beautiful, and then the doggone blue jays. Oh! Yes, we rust, not tan. Exactly. All plants like their feet in shade. Okay, sorry, just reading the comments. And Tessie, I have done that with my beans too. And it's such a beautiful thing, especially if you got like the kind of beans like the Sunset Run or the Scarlet Runner that has a nice bright colored flower, and you grow that on there, so you've got these bright kind of orangey red flowers going up the stalk of the sunflower. Then you got the big beautiful yellow sunflower. So I have a picture of that somewhere, a couple of pictures. They didn't turn out super great, but slugs and blue jays, oh my, yes. Ugh, they're so annoying. So this year I'm seeing the slugs starting to come out, and as soon as I see one, they're dead. They're dead. If I have a shovel, I stab them, I step on them, I do whatever. I'm not always carrying like a little thing of salt to toss them into, but I'm going to try to get out there real soon, start getting out there every morning, picking slugs. I need to still go buy myself some cantaloupe and give the cantaloupe, half a cantaloupe thing, a try and see if I can trap them that way for the most part. But yeah, all the great ideas people have about slugs because it works for them in their different climate than ours. Slugs are the state mascot. They should be. Yeah, those things don't work. So I don't want to hear about diatomaceous earth and beer and all that stuff because it does not work here. You got to understand, we have mutant ninja slugs here. They are. I mean, it's bad. Last summer was our worst year for slugs ever. So I'm calling that the Great Slug War of 2016. So I'm hoping that Bruce, you must not have heard my comment, or then again, this is a delayed thing, so it might not have got to you yet. And salt only works if you're carrying it around and putting them in the salt. You can't just throw salt down. Besides, you will kill your plants around the garden. So, and you got to realize, 100. Let's say we get the minimum amount of rain, 120 inches of rain per year. All that stuff, you just have to keep putting it down, and then you have to keep putting it down, and then you have to keep putting it down because the rain keeps washing it away, and it does no good. And guess what? When it's raining is when the slugs come out the most, and so it waters down the beer, it washes away all this other stuff. It's absolutely useless. So the only real good way to get rid of slugs that I have found so far, and I know talking to people gardening around here that have gardened as long as I have, I mean longer, much longer than I have, is to go out there and pick them by hand. It's not a fun task, but you know, it works to a degree. Are the slugs edible? Yes, they are. Do I want to eat them? No. But I do know a young man who, when he was little, he used to eat the slugs. I don't know why. I heard they get stuck in your throat. If you just, put a live slug in your throat, they will stick in there. Yeah. Ugh. And okay. If they're cooked, maybe I would try it. I don't know. I've had escargot before. And I tell you, when my brothers lived with my dad growing up, and they were on the Oregon coast. And so in the summertime, I'd go stay with them. And they used to go pick the little black snails off the rocks on the Oregon coast there. And then we'd cook them up and dip them in butter and eat them. And I loved them. But really, what is the difference between a snail and a slug? What's the difference? One has a shell. That's about it. So, yeah. Homestead escargot, Africa-bound girl, love it. But just so you know, my husband does not like snails or oysters or anything like that where you eat the guts. It's just wrong. And now, because I've been married to him for so long, I kind of started to feel the same way. It just happens. 27 years of marriage, you sort of become a little bit alike. Now, and speaking of pen woodsman, there are some that repel slugs. One thing is, I grow a lot of nasturtium. Nasturtium just goes crazy, and slugs are drawn to the nasturtiums. I'm pretty sure I've accidentally eaten a couple slugs when I've just gone out there and picked a flower, because sometimes they get down inside the flower. But they are drawn to the nasturtiums, and so one of the ways the nasturtium works with slugs is it will draw the slugs over to the nasturtiums and help keep them away from the other plants. So that's one way to do it. You guys like my clear pictures, huh? Yeah. So Bruce, you've had experience in eating slugs, so that you know that there is a different taste and texture. I don't know. I've never eaten a slug. I have no desire to. Escar, gross. You guys are cracking me up. Okay. Hi to Family Homestead. By the way, somebody brought up the collaboration you're doing, and now that you're here and I can say this to you more directly, I so very much apologize. I have not been able to jump in on that. I don't know how long that's going to go on. I haven't been able to look. It's been very stressful and crazy around here. I'm surprised I'm even able to do this live show. I do want to get back into collaborations. I really, really do, because I think they're so great for building each other up. And so I very much apologize. And I apologize too for not being able to be a part of the live shows. I really praying that things will settle down for us so we can kind of get more involved in and being a part of the other channels and getting into their live feeds and being a part of their collaborations, because I think it means a lot. And I so very much appreciate the fact that you considered us and asked me to be a part. And I will try if I can. And some of it too is remembering. So you know, I just, okay, sorry. I knew this, I was going to do this at some point. I just want to thank you guys so much for being so supportive of me and my channel and my husband, and praying for us and just encouraging with your kind words and comments. I've been wanting to be able to give back more by being able to get into the other people's videos and commenting more, and I just have not been able to do it. I'm so sorry. But just know that it all means a lot to us, and I mean that, and it's been just the kind words. It's been very much needed, and especially this time and what we're going through. And so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do this, okay? I've been really good at keeping myself contained for a long time. So thank you everyone for that. I do want to ask if there, thank you for all those kind words. So much appreciate that. I'm going to get going here pretty quick, but I want to ask. I love you guys. Thank you. I do want to ask if there are any other questions, like anything about garden vinegar, fermenting, anything that I might be able to answer. And if not, then we'll, yes, Tessie. I've been holding it back for quite a while, and I think I just probably need to shut everything down and just have a good cry and just, you know. Thank you too, family. And Deanna, man, you guys, wow, okay. Lots of great, sweet comments coming in for those of you who are watching this later, and I really appreciate it. So, and I wanted to say that I'm kind of getting in this habit. This helps me spread things out, of posting this video live, the live video, making it public on a Saturday. So I know that's kind of a long time wait for those who, you know, who came in and missed part of the show and want to see the whole thing. But just think of it this way: you have something to look forward to on Saturday. Saturday morning cartoon. That's pretty much what I am half the time. I feel like I'm just nothing more than a cartoon. So, sure, Avonlea. Say it right? Yeah, we'll say a prayer for them. Sure thing. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more. Thank you, Lucy. I'm not seeing more questions coming in, and I probably should get busy and get some more sewing done. And oh, I want to show you real quick before I go. I just finished this skirt for I don't know if the colors. It's not like it's very colorful, but it's the same print that you'll see in the skirt that Stacy had in one of their more recent videos, where they're out there raking leaves for the potatoes. And yes, that was one of the skirts I made her. And she looks absolutely adorable in that. And then I made another one for her, similar to that, but in shades of blue. But this lady wanted it all in just this print. I won't be able to do another full skirt in just this print, and I can't get any more of this fabric. I tried, and it's gone. It's gone. But anyway, I'm anxious. I'll be getting that off to her in the mail here in the next couple of days. So it's been fun doing all this. This particular skirt is made a little fuller, so it's for a more full-figured woman. And oh, and I've been getting better at my tags on the inside. I found a better fabric that kind of holds up a little bit better, and then I just hand stitched the tags in there, so you remember where it came from. So anyway, okay, thank you everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here and go build a fire and get some chores done. I may even stay nice enough for me to get out there and harvest some stinging nettle, and I will do a video on what I do with my stinging nettle once I get to that. So thank you all. Thanks for coming in and everything. You've helped support us, and your kind words and blah 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 blah, all that great stuff. Love you. Thanks for being a part. Take care, and God bless.